Alrighty, parents, it is time for some truth bombs, as they say. And that is specifically about the one thing that nobody else really talks about when it comes to what's really causing this incredibly dramatic rise in chronic health issues in our kids, and that is birth trauma. Now, so many people have probably been told that your child's chronic health issues are a result of genetics, gluten, gut health, toxins, whatever it may be. And the conventional medical system is still going to blame those things, right? Genetics, bad luck, and holistic, the more natural doctors are going to tend to trend more towards the toxins, gluten, dairy, pesticides, preservatives, you name it. But what we see all the time is that there is way more to the story than just genetics. There's way more to the story than just poor gut health. There's way more to the story than gluten and other toxins or whatever it may be. And we see all the time that so many of the kids, their chronic health struggles were first triggered and set in motion during their very first moments of life, just after birth and during that birth process. And so after 7 years of clinical practice, I can tell you that the single biggest cause or trigger of these chronic illnesses in kids is something that really no one is talking about, because it kind of, quite frankly, gets dismissed. And also the medical system doesn't really have a whole lot that they can do about it. It's these birth interventions and trauma, such as inductions when the mom's body's not ready for it, such as unneeded C-sections, such as vacuum extractions, forceps, you name it, right? And so this video is for those parents whose children are facing chronic health issues, developmental delays, neurological challenges, whatever it may be, and are still searching for answers in terms of what exactly even causes, right? What is the root cause? And so in this video, I'm going to dive deep into the hidden connection between birth trauma, brainstem injuries, neurological dysfunction and delays in kids, and you are going to walk away with a better idea of why, when all of these kids come in, no matter the age that they are, why we dive deep into their history is the first thing we want to know is how was pregnancy, how was the birth process, and then walk us all the way from there up to where we are now. Because what happens so often is that these birth interventions can trigger a cascade of neurodevelopmental issues. And so they start as maybe a colicky baby or an irritated baby or a constipated baby, and that then can cause a wide range of chronic health challenges as they start to grow up, whether that be immune challenges, whether that be social emotional challenges, whether that be neurodevelopmental challenges. And we are then going to dive into this approach that we have here at Bright Beginnings to really address, well, okay, if that's what we know the core cause is, but how do we address it, right? And that's something that we can do here with our neurologically focused chiropractic care. And so we see it time after time after time, right? We've come to this conclusion through clinical practice, right? Because when we asked these questions, we started to put it together and we started to find these correlations and connections of, man, all of these kids who are struggling with ADHD, anxiety, sensory processing, autism, depression, behavior emotional challenges, meltdowns, tantrums, colicky babies, all of a sudden we're starting to see, we ask these questions, and every time there's something that goes on, whether during that birth process, right? Whether it's the induction when mom wasn't ready and they start giving them Pitocin, and now all of a sudden, if you can imagine, unfortunately, baby's head is kind of jammed in there, right? And being pressed up into the pelvis against the cervix and getting those compression injuries. Or instead, they're getting in there and having to pull and grab baby out by the head and neck, right? And sometimes it's needed, right? I am not saying that's not needed, but it would be great if the birth process maybe didn't go as smooth as what you thought, and the doctors really had to use some extra force to get baby out of there. If they gave you an idea of, okay, this happened, now what can we do about it, right? And gave you a referral for a local pediatric chiropractor who could help you take care of that injury that happened to the baby's head and neck, right? The second baby comes out, all of a sudden we're holding baby, and it's everything. The most important thing is support that head and neck, but we forget that they were just then pulled out by the head and neck, right? And that's something that we see all the time, and it's going to cause what I've been referring to as an injury or more specifically, a subluxation, right? A subluxation where that stress and that injury gets stuck in that area. Now all of a sudden the nervous system is dysregulated, there's dysfunction, there's dysautonomia, and some of these basic functions start to get disrupted, right? And so when these subluxations and neurological dysfunction in these particular areas, which the most common areas affected are the brainstem, the upper neck, the cranial, and the upper thoracic, kind of up in the shoulder region. Those are the most common areas we see affected. And so when there is subluxation and neurological dysfunction in those particular areas, it leads to immediate challenges with essential health functions, right? Of the infants and the children latching, swallowing, breastfeeding, sleeping, digesting food, right? All of the neurology that controls all of those things come from those areas that are so often affected. And so once this physical injury sets in and it starts to get the nervous system out of whack, gets the nervous system out of balance, which is something called dysautonomia, right? And that dysregulation sets in, leading to all then the bodily functions starting to be off, right? So now all of a sudden we get into digestion, respiration, immune function, sensory motor functions, right? All of a sudden now all those are negatively affected. And so you can start to see this cascade or this sequence of events that, again, it all leads back to the same kind of root cause. But as it starts to develop in these kiddos, they can all verge and have different symptoms or different challenges, but it leads back to that same core struggle, which is the disruption in the nervous system function from birth trauma. And it's going to affect then all the way up through these developmental milestones, right? Things like delays in walking, delays in talking. Other motor skills can sometimes be traced back to nerve system impairments caused at birth, right? And then unfortunately, we see all the time that can lead to some of these more long-term health issues as well, right? And that's the hard part about tracking this, the hard part about tracking the impact of birth trauma, because it's not always immediate, right? It's not always obvious right away. Now, sometimes it absolutely is, right? When we get those colicky babies that are screaming all the time, that don't sleep, right? We had some parents come in recently that, baby was getting about 30 minutes of sleep at a time, right? That's a super obvious one. Baby's not comfortable. They're super irritated because of those injuries, right? But sometimes it's not right away. Sometimes it slowly develops over time because our bodies are made to adapt to these things, right? We have injuries and stress stuck all the time, but over time it starts to add up. And all of a sudden we have a kiddo who has, digestive issues or learning disabilities or behavior problems that seemingly kind of started coming out of nowhere. But no, we had that root cause all the way back. It's just the body was able to adapt and compensate for it until all of a sudden it wasn't. And so sometimes that is why it's so important for us to take that incredibly detailed history, go all the way back and really track where this all started so that we can then give mom and dad a better idea of what it's going to take in order to get it better, right? In order to change it. And that's what all these parents are looking for, is an identification of what is going on, when did it start, and then put a plan together. What can we do about it? And that's exactly what we do, right? We take all of that information from the history that we get in terms of what happened during the birth process, or even during pregnancy, during fertility, or after the birth process. Where were these things that started to add up? And then we put those together with our neurological scans, and those nervous system scans give us so much incredible information about where exactly that stress is stuck, right? And giving us an idea of identifying where is that dysregulation? Did it start from birth? How deep is it? How chronic is it? Which sounds weird to say in a kid, because chronic, you think of like, an old guy with back pain, right? But no, if it's been there the entire lifespan of these kids, even 2-3 years old, that's considered chronic, right? It's been there 100% of their life. And what those scans give us is they give us the confirmation, right? I can talk to you all day long about, we take care of this. We see kids with autism all the time. This kiddo recently has gotten some amazing results. He's nonverbal, starting to speak a little bit more. Immune system's getting better. He's walking better all of a sudden. He's pooping better. He's sleeping better, right? All of these amazing things that happen to all of these kiddos here. And I could say to you, mom or dad, oh yeah, that sounds like something we work with, but we don't know for sure until we get these scans, right? Because once we get the scans, then we know 3 things. 1, are they subluxated? And if they are, where is it happening, right? So that's number 2, exactly where is it? And our scans are able to pinpoint exactly where we need to focus to start to release that stress and tension and those injuries that have been built up, likely since birth. And then the other big thing is how much of it is there, right? How significant is it, right? Moderate, mild, severe. And oftentimes we know that based on their symptoms, certainly, but this gives us more detail of how long has it been there so that we can give you that exact personalized, customized plan of, hey, this is what we found, this is what we see all the time, this is what we know it's going to take, and here's what you can expect in terms of frequency, length of care, all of that stuff. So as we have explored today, the impact of birth trauma on your child's health can be profound and it can be long lasting. And unfortunately, this incredibly critical issue that we see every single time these kiddos come in goes unaddressed within the standard medical system, right? And even the most holistic and natural health practices sometimes are going to not catch this as well, but there is hope. And that's what we tell all of our families in here is usually these families have been to one specialist, to the other, and there absolutely is hope. We see it all the time. There are solutions outside of conventional treatments that can absolutely make a real difference in your child's life, right? At Bright Beginnings here, we understand the nuances of birth-related challenges and chronic health issues in kids. And that's why we start with that comprehensive look into your child's case history. We dive deep, we connect the dots for you, considering whether birth interventions and trauma could be at the root of the health challenge that they are facing. And then of course we get those insight scans, those neurological nervous system scans I was talking about. It's not just any scan. They are completely non-invasive. Nothing's going into the body. They're all sensory, giving us that information of how your child is functioning. It's focused, it's detailed, and it's designed to pinpoint that dysfunction and dysregulation within your child's nervous system. So if you suspect that your child's challenges might stem from birth trauma after watching this video, do not hesitate, do not wait. The good news is that we can always improve, but the longer we wait, there are more things that are going to build up, right? It's going to be in there longer. It's going to get more ingrained and stuck in that system, because the toughest part is when it happens so early, it's now in there during the building blocks. So all of these kids continue to develop on top of a building, a base that isn't as strong, that isn't as sturdy as what we would like. And so then when we start to heal them, we got to go all the way back to those basic functions and where it all started, and then we can start to build on top of that. So if this is something the case, please send us a direct message, schedule an appointment online. We are more than happy to talk through any specific questions that you may have related to your kiddo. We also have a Perfect Storm workshop, which dives even deeper into the specifics and the neurology and the research behind how this plays such a big role, coming up on next week, Thursday, November 7th, 6:30 p.m. The link is in our bio to register, totally free, all informational. We've got some snacks, we'll have some food and some drinks for you all. It's an awesome night of just information and empowerment for parents when we dive into all the specifics of this. And unfortunately, we hear it all the time. Why didn't I know about this earlier? Well, don't let that happen to you. Here is your sign. Send us a message. Come to our Perfect Storm workshop coming up next week. We'll get you all the information you need, and you'll be on the right track, because what you really need to remember is that you are not alone in this journey. We're here to help every step of the way.